All right, everybody, welcome to the 23rd episode of the podcast. You know what's crazy? While I was doing the last episode in regards to the whole earthquake, I was like, you know what? I never really take a lot of time to talk about what was happening in those early teenage years. You know, that whole time period around 6th grade, 7th grade, maybe even 8th grade. I'm like, I never really talk about that time period. So I was like, you know what? We might have to actually go back and revisit. So I decided I'm going to do middle school series. It's going to be 2 parts. It's going to be my 6th and 7th grade year, even though technically where I lived, 6th grade was still elementary. And then the second episode will be 8th and 9th, even though 9th grade where I lived was still technically junior high, and my high school went from 10th to 12th. But, you know, so I said, why don't we jump into that? So here we go. To me, middle school was a very interesting time, and it's also a time period that I'm not too pressed to ever really revisit. It wasn't a really great time, but it wasn't terrible, but there still are some funny stories that came out of that era. I guess what made it so weird was the fact that when we returned from Italy and moved back to the United States, I was getting ready to go into 6th grade. And when I came back to the United States, I just always felt that I was sometimes the odd one out. And I felt that I was the odd one out mainly because I guess the experience that I had in Italy, living in a foreign country for 3 years, and you're not really watching TV because there's no cable, so you're out of the loop with kind of everything that's happening in pop culture. Radio is a little bit different, so even with music, you're getting things delayed, or you're only getting the big blockbuster monster songs that are so huge that they have to find a way across the Atlantic Ocean. And you know, I did a lot of different sports and played sports in, like, you know, soccer, baseball, basketball, played all these different sports and traveled all around Western Europe. So, you know, spending all this time in Italy and Austria and Switzerland and Germany. And so when you get an opportunity to do all of that and then you come back to the United States, you sometimes, at least for me, I felt a little out of place. And I also felt like I was behind, especially when it came to like pop culture, when it came to fashion, when it came to lingo, when it came to just a lot of the things that everybody else was into. I felt like I was like, where have I been? Like when I got back to the United States, Pokemon was everywhere, but I was never into Pokemon because I feel like when I came, the wave had already come, and I missed the initial train to jump on to get onto the wave. And so I just, you know, it was one of the things I never was into. So it was a very transitional time period, almost like a time capsule. You know what I mean? When you load it up with everything from that era, and then when you open it years later, it showcases where things were at that time. That's almost how I was when I got back to the United States. When it came to like music, clothes, everything, I was still stuck in 1996, and at this point, it's almost the end of 1999. I've always told the story about how I never found out Biggie Smalls died until 2 years later. I didn't know until I got back to the United States, because again, you're not really looking at a lot of the magazines, and I was a kid too, so you know, I spent more time playing outside and doing other things, and I was also very, very creative. I was obsessed with like Legos and building things, and so that was the experience for me. So it's now about October of 99, and we've just moved into our new house. For the previous 2 months, we had been staying with this family, the Millers, who were really, really nice. They're really good family friends, and pretty much my parents got a house constructed from the ground up when we moved from Italy, and so the house was a little delayed and it wasn't ready when we got back to the United States, and so we stayed with the Millers. And by the way, I had a ball staying at the Millers' house. First of all, there's a million Millers around Tacoma. There's so many of them, but this specific part of the Miller section, because there's so many, this was a blended family that was really, really cool, where it was a husband and a wife, and they both had their own sets of kids, and it was kind of like a black version of the Brady Bunch. And so, of course, me being, you know, 11 years old going on 12, and there's like 11 people in the house, I had so much fun. The only downside is I did burn up their microwave on accident. Crazy story. I blame the television. It wasn't my fault. Like I said before, I lived in Italy. We didn't have cable at the time, so when I got back to the United States, it was like playing catch up, and I would spend so much time just sitting in front of the TV trying to catch up on everything I had missed. You know, we came back from Italy in June of 99, and me and Marcus spent the whole summer in Savannah, Georgia, and now we're in Washington State. And I specifically remember it was a marathon of MTV's Making the Video. And I thought this was the coolest show because it was like you could watch all of these cool entertainers you like make their music videos, and then at the end, you get to see the music video. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And so they had this marathon on, and I remember it was an LL Cool J episode. It was for the Deepest Bluest, Deepest Bluest was the name of the song. It was for the Deep Blue Sea soundtrack. So they had his episode. I remember watching that, and then right after was Jay-Z's, the song he had for the Blue Streak soundtrack. I can't remember the title of the song, but I remember it was the "Come Here Baby, You Drive Me Crazy, I Don't Want Nobody But You, My Baby, Hold Me Tight," like that song. I remember it was that, and I remember watching it because Brandy randomly popped up in the episode with a backpack on, like, "Yo, Jay-Z, what's up?" And then somehow she was hanging out on the set. I remember that. And then the episode that came after, it was Mariah Carey's Heartbreaker video. And so while that episode was on, it was towards the tail end of the episode, and I was like, oh, I want to make some popcorn. I'm hungry. Let me go ahead and make some popcorn real quick. And I was the only one at the house. And like I said, the house normally had like 11, 12 people in it all the time. There were like 6 or 7 kids and teenagers, and then the 2 adults, and then my parents, and so on and so forth. But at this moment, my dad had just left for work, and this is back when he used to work at Milgard, which is the company. It was like a window factory, and he always had the night shift, so he had just left for work. My mom was pretty much winding down her work shift, getting ready to come home, and I don't know where the rest of the people are at. And so I'm watching this episode. I put the popcorn in the microwave, and I'm really into this episode because I'm so obsessed with how they're doing the special effects, because if you've ever seen the Heartbreaker video, Mariah Carey is fighting herself in the video. I was like, this is so cool to watch, and I'm all invested, just locked in, right? And totally forgot I got the food in the microwave, just cooking or doing whatever it's doing. And so the TV show's going, in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and now the world premiere of the Mariah Carey. And then right halfway through, I'm like, what is that smell? I'm like, this popcorn smell real strong. I'm like, oh, shoot the popcorn. So then I look behind me. I see nothing but black smoke billowing out of this microwave. I'm like, oh shoot. And so I run to the microwave, and I turn the microwave off, and then when I finally open it, again, there's just smoke coming everywhere. And now the smoke alarm is going off, and I don't know what to do. I'm trying to get the dish towel, and I'm trying to swing it around the smoke detector at the same time, and I'm trying to make the smoke stop coming out of the microwave. I'm just flustered. It was too much. I'm like, oh Lord. Mariah's in the background just singing her heart out in the video, and so I'm like, what the heck is going on? The whole kitchen is just smoky. It was kind of like Soul Food when the kitchen caught fire, and then you saw Terry running around there. Oh my God, the house, same kind of energy. I was like, oh shoot, I'm about to burn these people's house down. And so, the smoke finally clears a little bit. I can't even make out what's in the microwave. That bag of popcorn is so just charred, black. I can't even find the kernels. The kernels are gone. They have all turned into like ash, and the entire inside of the microwave is covered in like soot and just black, grimy stuff. I was like, shoot, man, what the heck? And I'm like, dang, I think I blew up the microwave. And so what I think I did, I think that I ended up pushing the number 7 when I thought I pushed the number 4 on the microwave. So I probably put the popcorn in for 7 minutes. Popcorn only needs to cook for like 3.5, 4 minutes. I was reading what was on the bag. Bag said 4 minutes, but I think I probably pushed 7. And so, I'm just sitting here watching the TV, and, when it dings, I'll go get the food. And actually, no, sorry, the food is on fire in the microwave. And so, man, I was like, shoot, what do I do now? And I was like, who do I call? Do I call Mom or do I call Dad? If I call Dad, he's already going to be in a bad mood because he's already sleep deprived because he's working 12-hour shifts, so he's probably not the person to call. Plus, I did eat his blackberries and I did not ask, and he's a little over it. If I call Mom, she's already going to be on the way home anyway. Or I could just run away again and just act like I didn't know what happened or pretend I was outside the whole time. Nah, I'll just call Mom. And so I called my mom, and if you've ever been one of those kids like myself during that point in life, anytime something got broken or I did anything crazy, when I had to call my parents at work to tell them whatever foolery that I had gotten myself into, I would always take the longest time giving all of these descriptions leading up to what I actually did. Or I'd describe something, like if something got broken, I'd spend 5 minutes describing it. And my parents already know what it is. And I think as a parent, you're already annoyed because you know your kids have done something stupid if they're taking too long to get to the point. And so really, the longer it takes your child to tell you what it is that they've done, the more flustered you get. But as a kid, you don't know that, so I'm just doing all the wrong things. And I'm like, Mom, what, Michael, what? I'm on the way home. The microwave in the kitchen, in the corner by the sink that kind of sits. It's under the cabinet that has the cups in it on the other side of the stove when you first come into the kitchen. Yes, Michael, what's wrong with the microwave? I don't know what all happened. I was just watching TV and it was smoking. Why is smoke coming out the microwave, Michael? Is it on fire? No, but unplug the microwave. Why is it smoking? I don't know. Did you put something in the microwave? I was just making a little bit. You know what? Call your dad. I ain't got time for it. Click. Okay, that didn't go well. So then I had to call my dad, and I was like, dang, man. Because normally, if I get in trouble, the system would normally be one parent would normally be a little bit more receptive than the other, so win over the one that you think is going to be more receptive. That way, when the other one flips out, the parent that's a bit more receptive can kind of keep the parent that's about to flip out a little bit more leveled, and it might not be too bad. I might actually live to see tomorrow. I might live to see another day. I might live to fight another day. But no. So I had to call my father, and I hated calling him because I knew, don't call him because he's already flustered, and he hated that job. Like, he hated working at that factory. So, the last thing you need to do is call him and give him some more foolery that you done got into. And so I call. Hey, Dad. Michael, what did I tell you about calling me when I'm at work? What is the problem? I can't be on the phone like that. What's the problem? The microwave. Michael, don't be calling me about no nonsense. Spit it out. And so, okay, the microwave, I put some popcorn in there, I left it in too long, the whole microwave is all burned up. And so one of the funniest things, whenever my father would get mad, he wouldn't even say words. He would just make these sounds and grunts. It would literally turn into like a James Brown meets Chuck Brown meets a Rick James, Johnny Taylor type song. And so, I told him that I burned up this microwave, and my dad can't even get the words out because he's trying to figure out how to not cuss me. Get off my phone. That whole day was funny. The way they gave me one of those SOS pads, they had me in there scrubbing that microwave. And then, of course, as I'm trying to scrub off the burnt parts, the inside of the paint comes off the microwave. They just had to throw that whole thing away and get them a new microwave. My parents were hot. And then it was like a tag team special when they both was cussing me out about it. How you burn up the microwave? I was like, it just got too hot. What you mean the microwave got too hot? He's over there just saying anything because that's what it's supposed to do. It's a microwave. It's supposed to get hot. But the problem is, he's not paying attention. He over there watching that TV that had the thing in it for 30 minutes. Could have burned the whole house down. I don't know why, whenever I mimic my mom fussing, I always give her that voice that makes it sound like she's one of the characters off the Clumps. But anyway, so it's October of 99, and we have just moved into our new house. And it's so crazy because just like how I was talking about my mother nagging, the way that she would nag when we moved in this house, because for her, it was like she got this house built from the ground up. We are going to keep this house together. And so, every day you get fussed at. Like, I'm telling y'all right now, this is going to be a new day. I keep a clean house. The kitchen's going to be clean. The bathroom's going to be clean. You will be sweeping the stairs. You will keep your room clean. That garage will be clean. The living room will be clean. Everything will be swept. Things will be dusted. This is not going to be like how y'all been in other houses. Y'all not gonna be having the walls all dingy and everything else just falling apart. This is gonna be a clean house, and y'all gonna be having this stuff together. Otherwise, I'm gonna start taking stuff away. I'm gonna start taking away TV. I'm taking away game. Everything. Stuff will be right up in this house. And I'm like, dang, I don't even want to live here now, Lord. But the craziest bit with all of it was that for some reason, I kept breaking things. Like every other week, I was tearing up something. And I would never do it on purpose. It would always just be a coincidence. And of course, I would get just totally cussed out by my mom about it. And this was when my dad was still working the night shift. So let's say I got in trouble that evening. I had until I went to bed to somehow win my mother over so that she would be on my side by the time dad came home. And it didn't always work. Sometimes there was no way to even work around it. It was just like, oh shoot, I done messed up. I think the worst time would have been my friend Bobby had came over. And so Bobby was this kid that lived next door, like literally next door. When the neighborhood got built, their house was there first, and then ours was built a few weeks after. And so me and Bobby kind of got to watch the entire neighborhood get constructed. And later on, you'd see like Chris and Valerie's house get built, if you remember Chris and Valerie from the earthquake episode. And then there was another kid, Jeremy, who lived further on the other side of the neighborhood. And Jeremy was this big Michael Jackson fan, so I used to go to Jeremy's house and we would dance on his porch all day. And there were a bunch of different houses that started to get built. And that whole area in general was a bunch of different neighborhoods. So we lived in Clairwood, and then there was a neighborhood called Clairwood 2, which was the same neighborhood my 6th grade teacher would live in. So it's not like I could cut up in class because she could just walk over to my house if she wanted to. And then there was a neighborhood Deerfield, and that's where my best friend Brian lived. And then there was a neighborhood called Hidden Village. There was a neighborhood called Legend Park. There was a neighborhood called Crescent Pond. There was a neighborhood called Olympic View, which is where we would end up moving to 3 years later. There was another neighborhood, Taylor Point. I mean, it was just neighborhood after neighborhood after neighborhood. And so really the only thing you had to do was go to people's house because there wasn't a whole lot to do in Spanaway. That side of Spanaway that we were on, the only thing that was out there was this like Chevron McDonald's, and if you rolled your bike a little bit further, there used to be it used to be called Stock Market, and then it was called Marketplace, which is like a grocery store, and there was a Kmart, there was a pet store, there was this Mexican restaurant, a Dairy Queen, this store called Factory to You, and then the bank. And that was pretty much it, at least for that side of Spanaway. And then the cool thing was there was this big giant pond that was walking distance. So sometimes we'd just go to the pond with our bikes and, go capture bullfrogs and stuff. And I was a tree hugger, so I'd be obsessed with like keeping the bullfrog as a pet, and the other kids would want to put a firecracker in it and blow it up. I'm like, okay. But anyway, I think the worst offense that ever happened in the house was one time Bobby was over. And the rule my parents always had was if nobody's home, no company. Especially if Marcus was home with me, because at the time Marcus was 4, getting ready to go on 5, and so my parents were like, no, you are not responsible enough to be having other kids in the house and Marcus at the same time, because you'll get with them friends and y'all will get on that video game or y'all will get to do on whatever, and Marcus fell down the stairs and broke his neck. So no, absolutely not. So Bobby was over one time. Wasn't supposed to be, and it didn't seem like a big deal because Bobby just lived next door. So if my parents were coming home, he could just run through the backyard, hop over the fence, and nothing happened. And so Bobby was over, and we were playing Roller Coaster Tycoon. I'm not gonna lie, that was my favorite game back in the day. I was obsessed with it. And so Bobby had the game first at his house, and then we ended up getting a new computer, and so it played faster on my computer at the house. So we'd sit on Roller Coaster Tycoon all day playing that thing because you could build the game was pretty much a game where you built an amusement park. And it's really like low-key is like a super educational game because you have to understand budgeting, you have to understand like architectural design and velocity and all this other stuff, and how to make sure that your park is successful. So you sit on that crap all day. And so we're on the computer, and mind you, the computer room was upstairs, and we're sitting, and then I just hear that garage door open, and I was like, shoot! And then I look out the window, and both my mom and dad are pulling in at the same time. I'm like, what the heck? My dad's supposed to be at work. Mom's not supposed to be home yet. I was like, Bob, you gotta get out. And so we knew we couldn't go through the front door because they would see us. And I was like, okay, we literally have about 11 seconds before they come in through that garage door and into the house. And so the back door was already open. So Bobby starts running. Like Bobby just jumps down all the stairs, jumps down the stairs. We're running. And then we're going to the back door. He just runs straight through the screen door because the back door was open, but the sliding screen door was still closed. And rather than opening the screen door, he just runs straight through the door, but whole body, poof, through the screen door. And I'm sitting there like, oh God, please let this be a dream. Let this be a dream. Let this be a dream. Please let this be a dream. And so the door to the garage opens, and my mom comes in, and she had just bought some takeout for us to eat for dinner. She had got some takeout from this little teriyaki spot, and I mean, the food was smelling good. And then my dad was coming in on his phone, and I'm just standing there in front of this sliding door where there's a screen door that you see the frame, and then the screen you see busted through, poking into the backyard. And then there's me just standing there, like I couldn't even get my words out. And so my mom was like, what? Like it was like my mom and my dad were both flustered. And so my mom, what? And then my dad, Karen, what's the problem? Then he started looking. Boy. And then next thing you know, Marcus comes and he's like, Mom, Bobby was here. Bobby was over here with Michael. Bobby, he was on the computer. Because Marcus is like 5. It takes him forever to get a story out. And I'm sitting there looking at Marcus like, will you shut up? Nobody asked you right now. Dang. I was so mad because Marcus just killed any opportunity for me to think of some kind of lie real quick. Because I was quick on my feet. But even in that moment, I couldn't even think of what to possibly say. And so my parents are just standing there looking at me because I think they're in total shock because we've only been in this house for maybe a month. And I had already tore up the whole screen door. It was so bad. And my mom was like, you know what? You would have just been better off having company in the house when you're not supposed to, rather than trying to sneak them out, because you done busted up my door that I just bought. We ain't been in this house but a month. And then my dad is standing there. My dad is hot. Like, he doesn't even have words at the moment. And I think the only thing that was saving me at the moment was that my mom was standing in front of him, because I swear he wanted to throw me through the screen door himself. Like, it was terrible. And it didn't help that Marcus is just sitting there trying to tell the whole story. And I'm looking at Marcus like, bruh, shut up. We got this. Just be quiet. And so the punishment for me, well, part of the punishment, because I would like to protect the legacy of my parents here, a portion of the punishment was that the money that they were going to use to fix the screen door was going to come out of school clothes and come out of Christmas. And so I was like, dang. And so that was also another conversation when it came to clothes, because I was now at this age where I wanted to be all hip and stuff like all the other kids. You know, like I remember seeing all the cool commercials for clothes, like the Gap commercials used to be lit. Remember, like the Gap used to have all those commercials and they would remake all the different songs from way back in the day, and then the models in the video or in the commercial, they'd be singing the song and be wearing all the new clothes. And so I remember there was like the commercial where the kids were singing the New Edition Cool It Now, and there was another one where there was these people singing Madonna Dress You Up in My Love. And so at school everybody was wearing Gap, especially the fleece vest. Everybody was wearing the fleece vest at the time, or they had on FUBU. FUBU was still holding on at the time, and the P. Miller clothing line was kind of, I think that was still a thing at the time, or it was just getting there. And so those were all the things everybody was wearing, of course, and then Jordans and all. And my dad did not believe in no name brand anything. My clothes were still coming from Kmart, or they were coming from the PX. And of course, when it came to clothing, they were not spending a whole lot of money. My dad did not believe in that. He just needed to get clothes that would get the job done, especially when it came to shoes. Name brand, forget about it. And so I never got to wear Jordans or the fancy Nikes or anything like that. Most of the time, I was probably wearing Converse, or I had on maybe some K-Swiss, maybe Adidas shell toes, mainly because they weren't super expensive, because I already had really big feet as a kid. Like I was already wearing men's shoes by the time I was in 3rd grade, and my dad was like, nope, I'm not paying more than like $60 for shoes. And so, you know, I'm watching all the kids at school who are really into fashion and stuff, because this is that era where you start paying attention to girls and everything, and you know, you try to have all your little gear and stuff together and everything, try to be a little swagged out at 12 years old. And I wanted to have the cool haircuts and stuff too, like everybody else, but my dad was not one to, he just didn't believe in spending money on stuff that didn't make sense, especially if you didn't have a job, especially if you were a child, especially if you weren't paying any bills. There wasn't going to be no driving all the way to Tacoma to go to the expensive barbershop just so you can get a special lineup. Nope, he used to take me right over to King's Barbershop over there in Lakewood. He let the Koreans cut my hair for $7, and so that's how it was going to go. And I remember another thing that he used to fuss at me about. He swore that I was somebody that used to sag, and I'm telling you, I've never been a sagger. Like my pants were always pulled up, but for him, he believed in the old school way of doing things. Your pants need to be over the navel. That's what he used to always say. Them pants, when I see them, they need to be over the navel. Belly button, or the stomach, for those who don't know what the navel is. That's what he called it. They need to be over the navel. And because I would always have my pants just, hang on my waist. And so it wasn't like I was sagging, because I put the little pants on and I'd have them hang at my waist, and so I could still move and everything. They wouldn't come down. They were the right size because my parents weren't buying me baggy anything. And of course, this is when baggy was still in style. But my dad was not having over the navel. And it didn't help. I had really long legs. Like I'm all legs and no torso. So just imagine what it looks like when you see this kid with these really, really long legs and then these pants pulled all the way up to his belly button walking around. I was like, man, my dad used to just get me set up to get fried. And then sometimes when it came to like shoes, because my feet just kept growing, my dad did not want to keep buying new shoes. So he'd be like, you know what, you can wear them shoes I bought for myself in the closet because I'm not going to be wearing them. You can wear those. I'm like, Dad. Oh, and my dad, again, he was not into name brands or nothing like that. So he'd be having these shoes from different brands I have never heard of, and I'd have to wear that crap to school. Like, dang, man, I would tear them shoes up on purpose. I would play extra hard at recess. Play extra hard during PE. Make sure them shoes are all scuffed up and falling apart. And it wouldn't help because it wasn't like my dad was gonna be like, oh, you need new shoes. He'd be like, nope, you gotta teach you to quit tearing them up. So then I'd still have to go to school with the jacked up shoes. Like, man. And I used to always have to wear Everlast. And Everlast, you get fried for it because the kids used to call shoes that weren't name brand. They were the Bobos. And so, oh, you got on Everlast, huh? Oh, he got on them everlasting Bobos. Ah! I used to be so pissed. And then finally this one day, my father caved in and he let me get these Nike sneakers. They were only like $65, so that's why I got to get them. But I held on to those shoes like, man, you couldn't tell me anything. And so I used to take care of those shoes. And there was this day where I was in my room and I was like, oh, okay, my shoes are looking a little dingy. It's time to clean them up a little bit. So, I had my little toothbrush and my little bowl of bleach, and then I had a little towel that I had the shoes sitting on. And so I'm sitting there just scrubbing the shoes and I got the little music playing in the background. I'm taking care of these shoes. I'm bleaching the laces and everything because I need these shoes to look like they're still brand new and everything. And so I've done my work and everything. And so when I finally clean up the shoes to, let them go sit and dry and everything, I pick the towel up. And when I lift the towel, all of the bleach and the residue and anything that would have been on the shoe that I used to clean the shoes with was now in the carpet. The problem was, the carpet we had in this house was charcoal gray. And now there's this big giant bleach spot that's like the size of a couch pillow sitting right smack in the middle of my floor. Clearly, the towel was not a good enough buffer to protect the carpet. I was like, God, I just started crying because I knew my life was over. Like, I had just gotten in trouble earlier, maybe that month, for tearing something else up. Marcus and I used to always have these big giant wrestling matches in my room. And on this specific day, Bobby had been over. And, we were really obsessed with like play fighting and wrestling and stuff. And this is when WWF was still really big. They might have changed their name to WWE at that point. I can't remember. But, it was all about WWF, WCW. And I used to set my entire room up like it was an arena. And so there would be pillows and comforters and stuff all over the floor. And then in my room, I had this futon bunk bed where the bottom was a couch, the top was a bunk bed. So Marcus would be on the top. He would jump down onto the bottom and land on whoever. And we used to have like these belts and ties and stuff hanging from the rails on the bottom, under the top bunk. And then you could pull those down and hit people with it. And so at this specific moment, Bobby was the announcer. It was me and Marcus going at it. And we both used to have our own nicknames. I was always Miniature Mike because I was a little bit smaller for my age. And then Marcus, he gave himself the nickname Medieval Marcus. I don't know where that came from, but whatever. And so, me and Marcus are going at it. Marcus had jumped on my back. So I stood up and I'm walking and I keep backing into the wall with Marcus. So I'm hitting Marcus on the wall, just walking into it. Boom, boom, boom. And I keep picking him up because Marcus is like grabbing my face and, pulling my eyelids open. And so I go into the hallway and there's this double closet door. And behind the closet door, because you can like pull it open with like the two knobs, behind it is the washing machine and the dryer. So I take Marcus and I bang him into that closet. Boom! Big old giant boom. And next thing you know, the entire left door of that closet cracks. And to make things even worse, it also comes out of the hinges and it falls onto like the washing machine and then like slides down into the hallway. And I'm just standing there with Marcus on my back like, oh man, come on man. Like I just knew I was so done. And like I just kept getting in trouble, like, because we also had broke the couch maybe a few weeks earlier. On that day, I don't even remember what we were doing or what happened. I just know somehow we broke the back leg on the couch. It just totally snapped. The whole couch slipped back and fell into that corner where the leg didn't exist anymore. So of course we got cussed out for that. I remember we were trying to fix it. It just wasn't working. My dad ended up having to take all the legs off the couch and then replacing them. So of course that was a whooping and then some. And so then like even with the closet being broke, I just knew my life was over. I was like, Bobby, you might just want to go, man. You just go. And Bobby's dad felt so bad for us. He tried to come over and try to fix it, but there was nothing we could do. Of course, my mom gets home, and of course, my dad will not be home until, probably 6 a.m., because he has a night shift. And so, of course, bad news for dad when he gets home. So, of course, I was awakened when he got home to an unpleasant surprise. And man, we just kept getting in trouble. So going back to the shoes, there's this big old bleach spot on the carpet. I was crying because I was like, oh Lord, I don't know what's good. My life is just ruined. I've ruined everything. And my mom, of course, comes up there cussing me out. Every day, it's something else you gotta find a way to tear up. I don't know what's in the water with you, but you need to get it together. And so we ended up doing, because she kind of almost felt bad for me, because she knew I was like terrified, because literally we had just got this house, expensive carpet, and I done got this big old bleach spot in it. And as mad as she was, I think she knew I really meant well. Like I had tried. I put the towel down. I was trying to, be responsible. It would have made more sense to do it in the bathroom, but lesson learned. So what we ended up doing, the bathroom upstairs had a gray rug that sat right in front of the sink. And so since it was pretty much the same color as the carpet in my room, my mom was like, just put that over the spot for now. I'll deal with it later. We'll just change it. I don't know what to do with you, because every time I put up something nice, you're going to tear it up. So we put the rug over that big old bleach spot. And to be honest, my dad did not even notice for probably 3 months. And then by the time he discovered, okay, you done bleached this carpet, he was like, I don't even care. Whatever. It is what it is. You want to tear up your room? You the one that got to stay in there. That's on you. And so it was an interesting time. I just kept getting in trouble doing a bunch of silly things. And now I must make a confession. I have probably seen every episode of The Golden Girls. But the catch is, I haven't actually seen it with my eyes. I've just heard the episodes. One of the things my parents started trying to do as I got older was trying to find different ways to punish me. Because one, they were not really a fan of like whooping kids. We got whoopings on occasion. I can probably count on 2 hands how many whoopings I've had in life. Marcus got a whole lot more because Marcus was just another kind of child. But, they weren't really big fans of too much punishment with the physical. And so one of the things my mom started doing was like, you know what? Well, when I come home from now on, you need to just be around me at all times, because that's the only way you can not tear up stuff, if I can see what you're doing. So every time I would get in trouble, I would have to just go and I would have to sit by her and sit and face the wall. And my back would be turned to the TV. And so this would normally be 5 or 6 o'clock. So if I got a call home from school, or if something got broken, or whatever else, anything crazy I did, I already knew my spot was next to the couch, next to mom, facing the wall. And of course, in the background, what would be on TV? My mom loved the Lifetime channel. So she used to always watch Golden Girls, Designing Women, and Intimate Portrait. And when I tell you, I absolutely hated it. It was torture. The shows, I guess, it's funny now because sometimes, maybe I'll be flipping channels or something and it's on and I'll hear a joke and it's I remember the joke, but I never remembered the visual because I never saw it. So then it's okay, I'm putting the pieces together 20 years later. I'm like, oh, okay, that was funny. But as a child, I hated it because, of course, this, like I said, I was obsessed with the game Roller Coaster Tycoon. So if I wasn't playing Roller Coaster Tycoon, I was building something with Legos. And at this point, I had graduated to popsicle sticks, and I used to build these big old giant houses and stuff with the popsicle sticks and build whole neighborhoods. And so that's what I would want to get to my room to do. My mom would be like, nope, you need to sit right here next to me. And then sometimes, depending on what was going on, she might be nice and let me bring an activity down. But I just used to have to just sit by her because she was not playing about her house. It was pissing her off that we done broke the screen door, we done broke the closet, I done bleached the carpet, we done broke the couch. Stuff just kept getting broke. She was like, absolutely not. And so I used to just have to sit with her. And then don't let Marcus get in trouble because then he'd just be on the other side of the couch sitting. And so, we'd be sitting there all on punishment, just looking at the wall for 2 or 3 or 4 hours. I'm like, Lord, I'd rather just get the whooping, but okay. Now, the one thing I did do right during this time period was school. In 6th grade, that would be the first time I ever had straight A's. Because 5th grade was the first time I ever even had an A. And so it was kind of like I really had just done this really big 180. Because if you remember the Italy episodes, I talk about being in 3rd grade and how I was literally failing everything. And even in the past before, I was just never a strong student. There was a point when they wanted me to repeat 1st grade because they thought my maturity level wasn't ready for, going into the next grade. And then there was another time a few grades later where they were like, maybe you need to repeat this grade as well. And so to go from all of that to boom, okay, you got straight A's. I was killing it. I had 2 teachers. I had a teacher named Miss Gunnarsson and a teacher named Miss Cruz. Like I said, Miss Cruz lived not too far from the house. So, if I ever got in trouble, Miss Cruz could just come on over to the house. So, of course, I did not want that kind of smoke. But yeah, I really, when it came to school, I think what it was, there's no feeling worse than knowing that you disappointed your parents. And so when I finished 5th grade coming out of Italy, I started 5th grade really good. I had got my first A, my grades were okay, but by the time the year ended, because I think I was having so much fun, my grades had dropped all the way back down to a bunch of C's. And so my dad gave me this long talk about I'm just so hurt and disappointed because you have all the opportunity in the world and we give you everything and this is the best that you can give us, a bunch of C's. How'd you get a C in art? All you got to do is color. And then it didn't help that my parents would often compare me to other kids at church or in the neighborhood or my cousins, especially my cousin Tiffany, because my cousin Tiffany, she was the oldest cousin on my mom's side, but at that point, she was the one that was super, super smart, and she was off at Mercer College in Macon, Georgia, and then my cousin Brandon, who he and I were close in age, Brandon always had good grades, and my mom would get to nagging, and Brandon got straight A's again, and here you go, you done got another C and a da-da-da-da-da, and I'm like, well, Brandon's mom is a teacher, so of course he's gonna have good grades, he ain't got a choice. So after years of always being fussed at and feeling guilty and having that conviction and, being nervous to bring that report card home, because this is back in the day when everything wasn't electronic. You'd get your report card and you'd have to bring it home and get it signed and bring it back. And of course, I cannot open that report card until I brought it to my parents. They did not play that. When they got home and I came with that envelope, it better be sealed. It better not have been opened already. So I used to be so scared every time it was time to give the report card. And so something inside me was like, all right, we can do this. This is not even hard. And so I actually tried very hard that year. And I had really good teachers. Like I said, I had Miss Gunnarsson, I had Miss Cruz. And the thing with Miss Gunnarsson was that I already knew Miss Gunnarsson from before. One of the things my parents always did before my brother was born, they always had other kids living with us. They always had a foster child or they were taking care of somebody else. We always had people that lived with us because they were always helping somebody else. And so I remember there were these 2 boys, the Parker boys. There was Andre and there was Michael. And so Michael had Miss Gunnarsson for 6th grade and then Andre was at 8th grade and Michael used to give Miss Gunnarsson the business. And so my mom used to always have to go to the school, because the funniest thing with this story is that I'm at the same school that I was at before I went to Italy, like Camas Prairie Elementary. And so my mom used to have to go to that school back in the day when I was in 2nd grade and go handle Michael's affairs. And then fast forward, now I'm there in her 6th grade class. But she was a teacher that would really, really push you. Like, she knew what you were capable of doing. And if she felt that you were not pulling your weight, she was going to tell you about yourself and she was going to have you try again. There was no such thing as mediocrity and settling. You was just going to have to come correct in her class. She was not having it. And so I don't know, I just felt this pressure to like really do good. And not only just impress my parents, but also impress Miss Gunnarsson. Because Miss Gunnarsson, my God, that woman could talk. I know I talk a lot, but man, she could just go and go, and she would tell her whole life story about everything. And so anytime you were doing terrible, maybe half the class didn't do good on an assignment or something, she would tell this life story about the struggle she had coming up. And so by the time, she finished the story, everybody would feel bad that we didn't try hard enough, and everybody would want to go and do good. And so that was a fun class. I really enjoyed that class. And also, the school had some kind of sponsorship with Apple. And so what we had, at least in our class, all the classes didn't get it, but our class got it. We got this special grant where, we got some of those Apple computers remember the computers they had that used to have the colorful backgrounds, or the body of the computer used to be colorful. So like they'd be like blue or pink or green. So we had those. And then we also got Alpha Smarts, which were kind of like, I wouldn't say they were tablets because they were keyboards, but they were like a portable version of a word processor. You could type in it, and then you plug up the little USB cord and hook it into the computer, and then everything would download into the computer, and then you could print it out. And so we had Alpha Smarts, and so we do a lot of our homework on that. And we also sometimes would have to go to this kind of like Apple seminar workshop kind of thing where you'd learn better ways to use PowerPoint and Excel and all this other stuff. Kind of cool. You kind of, it's kind of like some introduction into what we would later be doing with technology, just 10, 15 years later anyway. And they would also give us a bunch of film equipment. So we often had film projects and stuff we'd also have to do. And we did a lot of writing. I mean, we wrote so much in that class. You would have to write for everything. You were going to be writing book reports. You were going to be writing essays. We had to keep a journal and write about everything that was happening in our life daily. We also had to keep a reading log and then write about what we read. And then there were just additional things you'd always have to do. The good thing was that they gave us the Alpha Smarts. Remember those portable word processors I told you about? Even though I don't think they even make Alpha Smarts anymore, but at the time it was something that was so just innovative. But you could take the Alpha Smarts home because they had enough for everybody in the class to have one. And so that made it easier because you really were just kind of typing. But what we didn't realize was that it was teaching us to type indirectly, and it really would help you hone your skills. So like pretty much everybody in that class, by the time you got out of her class, you definitely were typing at like 60 Guam, which is not a lot, but it'd only be 11 or 12. That's pretty well off. You were just so used to always typing and doing everything, but we had to write so much. And I remember we had to do a writing competition, which I won. The competition, what I wrote about was, this is around the time the new millennium was coming, and everybody thought the world was gonna end. I remember being a kid, and everybody was saying, okay, the power's gonna go out, and planes are gonna fall out of the sky, and we thought the power would go out for real because that Jennifer Lopez Waiting for Tonight video, when they had the countdown clock, and when it got to the year 2000, the lights went off, and then they came back on, so nobody knew what was happening. But I was like, well, if the world didn't end when the year 1000 came, why would the world end when the year 2000 came? And how do we know that we're even in the right year? Like, how do we know that when Earth was established, the years were already aligned? Eventually, somebody just randomly thought up, hey, let's start a thing called year. So it's like, we don't even know what time we're really living in. So I said some crap like that. And then the other thing was, everybody thought that when the year 2000 came, we'd all be living like the Jetsons. Everybody would be in flying cars, and when you'd go into the kitchen, everything would operate on its own. The stove could cook by itself, and you'd just push a button and the TV would come out of the wall. And I was saying, well, the year 2000 is in like a month, and I don't know how all of that's just going to magically appear. If it hasn't happened at this point, it's probably not going to happen overnight. Maybe we'll see some of those things later down the line, but you're not going to see it now. So I totally killed that little essay. And so I won like a nice little $500 prize from the company that was sponsoring the essay competition. It was a really cool time period. So academically, I was killing it. I had straight A's that entire year, and not just any A's, but literally every A I had for each grade was always at like 97, 98, 99%. And so there was a conversation about whether or not I was eligible to be promoted to the next grade early. And so it was decided that that wouldn't be a good idea. One, because I had come from another country into a new school system, and they wanted to make sure I had enough time to adjust, but also because it was going from elementary to middle school or junior high, different schooling system, different everything, and the middle school had already jumped into what they had going, and at this point we're well into the school year, so it was decided he should actually just write it out. And what triggered that conversation was they had just introduced the new standardized testing that would take place, and it was this test called the WASL, the Washington Assessment Student Learning Test, and the plan was by the year 2008, everybody would have to pass that exam by 10th grade in order to graduate. And so you take it a few times during the school year. You take it during 4th grade, during 7th grade, and during, I want to say 10th grade. And that way, if you failed it 10th grade, you had 11th grade and 12th grade to retake it before you could graduate. And so I was class of 2006, so it wouldn't apply to us, but they gave us a pilot version of the exam in 6th grade, and I pretty much just aced the 6th grade version or the 7th grade version. Like, they were like, what the heck? And so that's pretty much what started the conversation, but it was decided, no, he should stay in the grade he's in. And plus, really, I didn't want to jump to the next grade. I kind of liked where I was at. And so just a really interesting time. So grades were really, really good. That was the one thing that worked in my favor, was that even though I was doing all these stupid things at home, my grades were really, really good for some reason. The other cool thing that happened was I kind of made some okay friends during that time period. Again, I was a little awkward, so I didn't always mesh well with everybody, but I still kind of found my circle. And the main person that I used to run with in 6th grade, there was this kid, Brian, that was in my class. And so me and Brian were super tight, and he lived not too far from me. He lived in Deerfield, so he was just a bike ride away, or sometimes you could walk if you really felt like doing it. And so the thing with Brian was Samoan. And if you've ever had any kind of Samoan friend or relative, just know Samoans will take care of you. Every time I went to their house, I ate so good. I ate so good every time I went to their house. I remember the very first time I ever spent the night, I was just shocked at how much food they had in the house, first of all. Because one, Brian, I think there was 6 of them. It was like 6 siblings, and Brian was like kind of in the middle. And I remember I went over there, and the dad was like, hey, Mike, you want something to eat? And I was like, oh no, I'm fine. Because again, I come from a family where it was kind of like, when you go someplace else, don't be over there asking for nothing. Don't have nobody thinking that we don't feed you. You eat every single day. We are not doing that. Don't go over there acting like you ain't never ate before. I bet not hear back from his dad that you was over there cleaning them out of house and home. Don't be that person. And so, I'm like, oh, I'm fine. And his dad was like, listen, let me tell you something. The one thing I don't like, don't come to my house being bashful. This is my house, is your house. Go in that closet and get you something to eat. And so I opened that pantry, and I mean, it was just food galore. Anything you could think of was in that cabinet. Everything. I'm like, what? And so it was like the parents used to be like, we're gonna fatten you up. We got to get you to eat, because Brian was this giant kid. Like, I was this little tiny kid. Brian was all built and everything. I was like this tiny little scrawny kid with big feet and long legs and a big forehead. And so I mean, I would go to their house all the time, and I mean, everything. They just ate so good. I was like, how is this possible? I used to love going to their house. They had every snack you can think of. They had it. God, good times. Now, if I had a terrible memory, it would have to be that night at Patterson's skating rink. Oh, it's a horrible night, but I have to backtrack a few days to piece everything together. So the previous weekend, my father and I had just gone fishing, and my father had his own boat. He had a bass tracker, and so I used to always love going fishing with my dad, because we'd get on the boat, get all the little snacks and everything, and we'd fish the first few hours, and then we would just let the boat just kind of anchor and sit, and we just relax, let the sun beam down and everything. Because at this point, it's towards like the end of the school year. I want to say it's like maybe May, almost June, so it's a lot warmer. And so we're on this boat and everything, and when we take off on the boat, my dad would normally, you tread slowly when you're moving through the water at first, because it's still shallow, and then when you get to the deeper end, then you can zoom, 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 zoom. So we're finally at the deeper part, and we're zooming, and somehow some kind of bug or something hits me in the eye while we're going. Maybe I forgot what the speed limits are in the water, but we're going like 40 knots, or I don't know. We were going fast. I don't know what the measurements are, but so we're going fast. Some kind of mosquito or something hits me in the eye, and I feel it, and I kind of just brush it away, and we keep fishing and everything, enjoy the full day. When I get home, we didn't realize I had like bursted a whole blood vessel in my eye, so like the whole lower half of my right eye is bloodshot red. Like, it looked like somebody punched me in the face real good, like popped me a good one. So my whole face is already red. Then that same week, maybe a few days later, because my eye did not go down, so of course everybody kept looking at me weird at school, like, oh, do it again, pull your eyelid down. Oh, everybody look, Michael, come look at Michael, do it again. And so I'm already the freak of nature for the week. But then at the same time, my brother and I have still not learned about our WCW, WWE, WWF wrestling matches. And so, of course, Marcus and I are having this big, giant wrestling match in the room. Me and him are going at, just doing everything we're doing. And so Marcus had jumped onto the rails on the top of my bunk bed. And so he's holding onto the rails, and he's swinging. And when he swings, his knee goes straight into my lip. Boom! I was like, oh! He busts my entire lip, blood everywhere. And so I fall back, and then when I fall, I land on my foot wrong, and I crack the cuticle on my big toe. And so now my big toe is bleeding too. And so it was the craziest thing, because I'm like 12 or 11, and Marcus is like 5. And so Marcus has laid me out, and it was totally on accident. He didn't even mean to like do any harm. We were just in the zone, and I wasn't paying attention. And because what he was trying to do was he was gonna swing and then jump on me, but like he was swinging, and I got up, and just as I got up, his knee just went straight into my lip. Boom! Like, oh! And everything. And so my lip is bleeding, toes all messed up. I'm like, oh Lord. And Marcus like, sorry, Michael. I'm sorry. I'm like, I'm fine. And my mom is, what is going on up there? So now my mom starts walking up there. Oh, what happened? And so the visual looks like Marcus beat me up. My mom was like, wait a minute. I know he did not just. I was like, no, Mom, he didn't beat me up. It's just a chain of events that happened, Mom. I swear. Like it was the funniest thing because everybody was like, what the heck? And so now I can't really walk because my entire big toe, like the toe, like my toenail, it was cracked right at the base of my toe, like where the toenail starts. So I couldn't walk on that foot. So I'm limping. I got this bloody lip. My mom's getting mad because I'm dripping blood all on her carpet and everything. And so I'm just all broke up. Fast forward a few days later. I get invited to go skating. Like Bobby invites me, and like the thing was, I wasn't gonna go until he told me that this girl Angel and Chardana were going. And at the time, I had a crush on both of them. They were both in my class. And there was this song called Mambo Number 5 that was out from Lou Vega, I think that was his name. And so the song used to go like, a little bit of Monica in my life, a little bit of Erica by my side, a little bit of, and he just named all these different women that he had a crush on. And so I had made my own version of the song. And I made one with all the girls in the school that I liked. So, I was talking about the girl Angel and a little bit of Chardana and this girl Danielle and this other girl Ebony, like, and then this girl Christina, because she was the first girl in the class to finally like get a chest. And so I wrote down this version of the song. I had it written somewhere, and I think Bobby found it. And so I think Bobby either told Chardana or wanted him about it, so I got fried that whole week already. But, they invited me to the skating ring to go to Patterson's with them. I'm like, yes, okay, I'm totally down. Now, mind you, I'm all broke up. I got an eye that I can't even see out of good because it's not as bloodshot red as it was a few days earlier, but it's still a little jacked up, and the whole area is just a little swollen because I've been rubbing it. And then I got a busted lip, and I can barely walk on one foot. And so I was like, oh, I'm gonna go skating. If Chardana and Angel are there, I'm going. I am there. Because in my head, Angel was my Patty Mayonnaise, and I was Doug. I was crazy over Angel, and she did not pay me any attention. But it's okay. And so we get to the skating ring, and it doesn't help that I already got these big old giant feet. So I got these big old giant long skates. Like, they didn't even have the rollerblades in my size. They had to just give me the regular skates. So I had these big old long skates that looked like they came from 1974. Like, I looked like I was one step from playing an 8-track. And so, I got these big old long skates that it was hell to put on that right foot. Like, my foot hurt so bad trying to put it on because that toe was all jacked up. And so I get the skates on, and actually I can actually skate. Like, I'm a good skater. Like, I've always been good at skating. When I was little and I used to go to daycare, they used to take us to the skating ring every Thursday on Fort Lewis. So I was always good at skating, but with this jacked up foot that I can barely walk on, it's a little bit harder to skate because of the pain on my big toe. And so I'm already kind of skating kind of weird, and I'm kind of a little bit slower than everybody else. And so they have this portion where it's like, all right, we want everybody off the floor unless you got a girl with you or you got a guy with you. It's time for the couples to skate, because it's a random Friday night, but it's kind of like a family night. So it's a mixed crowd. It's kids, it's parents, it's a few teenagers, but it's nothing too wild. So it's very kid safe. And it was like most of the people that were there were probably like 5th grade to maybe 11th, and then some adults that were chaperoning. And so, they done turned the lights out. They got the little special lights and the disco ball and the lasers going, and they were playing the song. What song was it? I want to say it was Turn Your Lights Down Low, the version with Lauryn Hill on it. And so it's supposed to be all romantic and everything. And so I knew nobody was going to be skating with me. So I was just kind of sitting on a little bench waiting for that part to end. And then Angel's like, hey, come on, let's skate. And my whole heart just opened like, oh my God. And I'm in there with my little striped shirt on. Oh my God. Okay. All right. And so I'm like, yeah, she's like, let's skate. And then so Angel like pulls me like, let's go skate. And then at the same time, Chardana's on the other side like, yeah, let's go. And I'm like, wait, both of them? I'm like, okay. And so the three of us are skating. I'm in the middle. They both have my hand, and we're going around a circle. And then like Bobby, this other kid, Patrick, and a few other folks like, yeah, Mike, yeah. What I did not know was that this was about to turn into a whole trolling session. And so out of nowhere, the two of them just start skating super fast. I'm like, yo, why are we going so fast? Y'all got to slow down. They're just speed racing on this thing. I'm like, what the heck is going on? And so what they end up doing, I can't really keep up with them because really I'm just rolling and they're the ones doing the skating because they're going so fast because my foot hurts. I can only do so much with my jacked up eye and my busted lip. And so I'm trying to go, and then they're skating faster and faster and faster, and then I see this lady who's on there with one of her kids. Like it was her, and she took like her 5 or 6 year old skating, and so it was this big old white woman, this big giant woman with like these kind of like leggings on, and then in between her legs is like the little 5-year-old, and they're skating like super slow, doing a nice little family friendly. Oh, mommy took baby out to skate. Oh, your first skates. And so what ends up happening is Angel and Shardana skate super fast, and then they let me go, and I have nothing to do but either fall or run into this lady's butt. And so I end up going, I couldn't fall fast enough, and my face went right into this woman's butt. Oh, it was so bad. And you just heard like half the skating rink, everybody in there was dying. Bobby and it was so bad, and I just laid on the floor. I just laid there. The little ref guy came with his little ref shirt on to come pick me up, like, are you okay? Are you okay? I was so, like, I really wanted to cry. My feelings were so hurt. Like, I was so embarrassed, and I was so mad. And then, like, I tried to get up. I couldn't get up properly, and so I, like, slipped, like, 2 times while the staff was trying to help me up. It was so embarrassing. I hated all of them the rest of that night. I was pissed. And it didn't help. I spent the night at Bobby's house that night, so I had to, like, I was so mad I went back home when we left the skating ring. My feelings were hurt. But it's so funny to look back on. I can just imagine how funny it would have been to see that from the other side. But it was not funny to be the person. And, oh, God, it was terrible. And then it didn't help. The little kid was crying because I think I bumped into the little kid, too. So it was chaos. Horrible. I don't think I ever had any good memories from that skating rink, but the crazy part would be that I would later get a job there when I was a teenager, only to be fired before I could even start. And so, long story short, I had a friend that recommended me there because there were a few friends from high school that were all working there, and so they needed a DJ to work at the skating ring, and pretty much all you had to do is set up the playlist in the computer, and there you go. And I was like, oh, I want to do that. Like, that's lit. I love music. I'll definitely do it. But the problem was, the girl that recommended me, she was friends with another girl that worked there who had just got shot in the face by another guy who worked there. Like, it was the wildest mess. It happened senior year. I don't want to give the whole story, but just long story short, this girl ends up getting shot by somebody else that works there. And so the woman was like, pretty much anybody who was associated with anybody in that circle, I don't want that crap at my place of business. Y'all not bringing that mess here. So I was let go before I could even start. I'm like, dang, really? I don't even think that place is there anymore now. I remember it was Patterson's, and then it turned into like Skate and Go or Skating Station, and then they tried to turn it into like a club for teenagers. It was like Club Tropics that lasted for maybe 2 days, and then I don't know what it is now, but man, that's a skating rink there. Just a lot of memories. That whole time was just really wild, but I had a lot of fun, especially as the year was winding down. There was just a bunch of fun stuff I did, even with school. I really enjoyed my new routine, just in comparison to what was happening in Italy, because that was another adjustment that I had to kind of make. It's crazy because when I went to Italy, I hated it for that first year, maybe even part of the second year. And by the time I got to the end of 4th grade and 5th grade, I absolutely loved it. Didn't even really want to leave. My little feelings were hurt because I had my own crew over there. I used to run with Ricky and Keith and Dwayne and all these other kids. I was having such a good time, and then it's like, boom, back to America. And so then, you go to Savannah, and Savannah is always great for me because me and Brandon can always chop it up. But now I'm back in Washington, and these are all new kids that I'm kind of running with. And so sometimes it'll be a little down and out, but I was adjusting. But I really liked my new routine. Because I felt like super independent because, I had my own room on the other side of the upstairs. Marcus was just across from me, but, me and Marcus had our own rooms now because in Italy, we did have our own rooms there at one point, but we also had to share a room a few times. And so I had my own room. I remember in the mornings, every morning, I would watch MTV Jams. And at the time, Tyrese used to host it. I would watch MTV Jams in the morning with all the music videos while I was getting dressed for school. And then, after I'd come back from school, first thing I'll do is sit there and watch TRL. Like, it was crazy because I feel like I really was one of those kids that watched TRL every day. Like, every pop culture moment that would have happened between maybe 99 and 2001, 2002, I was right there watching. All of the crazy moments that would have happened on the show. So even when, like, Mariah went on there and gave the people ice cream and was taking off her clothes, I was right there watching. I was there at the time the Brat went on there with the see-through bra and forgot the bra was see-through. I remember watching Aaliyah when she came on there and she had the snake. And I think there was another time she was hosting and she was premiering the Try Again video. I remember the time TLC was on there when they were beefing, when they had announced the fan mail tour and there was only the two of them on there. I remember Christina Aguilera hosted, and then she also performed. I remember Diddy was on there, and this is when people didn't know if he was dating Jennifer Lopez or not, and this girl in the audience was like, I want to know what's going on with you and Jennifer Lopez, and everybody's like, ooh. So yeah, I definitely spent a lot of time watching music videos and music television. So MTV, VH1, BET. Like I said in an earlier episode, the issue we had with BET was because Spanaway did not have the largest black population. BET was a network that was only available after 7 o'clock. So I could always catch the last 30 minutes of 106 in Park, because pretty much until 7 o'clock, it was CSNBC. And then from 7 to midnight, it was BET, and then it would go back to CSNBC. Well, and then it was like some weird, paid programming, and then it would go back to CSNBC. So I could always catch the last 30 minutes of 106 in Park, and then I would watch Comic View before I went to bed. So I really just enjoyed that time period. And I also felt like I was playing catch up with pop culture and music. So I was obsessed with trying to know everybody who was somebody. I wanted to know all the songs. I wanted to know everything because I felt like, I missed so much while I was gone. And again, there were all these different artists I had never heard of, until I got back to the United States. So I was definitely playing catch up. But, I had a lot of fun too. One of the fun things I remember me and Bobby did, we had been watching Cool Runnings this one time, and then out of nowhere, we're like, yeah, we should have like a bobsled team. But the problem was it was like May going into June. And of course, with Washington State, they do get a lot of snow depending on where you live. But the portion that we lived in, you get a little snow sometimes in November, and then you get some more around January, February, and that's it. And it's not even a whole lot, a few inches every now and then. And so Bobby had this skateboard, and he also had this really big plastic green sled. And so I remember we hammered the sled onto the skateboard. And the thing about where we lived was that there was nothing but hills everywhere. The whole area was a bunch of hills. When you were driving into the neighborhood, like when you were driving into Clairwood, you had to go up this really, really big hill just to get to Clairwood. And then to get to our house, you go up the hill, you come to the front entrance, then you take a left and take another right. And when you took that right, you had to go up an even steeper hill to get to our house. And then our house sat on a hill. So even when you pulled into the driveway was a hill. Like you had to put on a parking brake when you parked. And true story, when we moved to the next neighborhood, Olympic View, a few years later, the neighbors across the street from us, they were on a hill, we weren't. And they were moving this piano one time with this little Bronco truck or something like that. And so they had the truck on there, they had just moved the piano out the truck, and then they had parked the truck they had. They did not put the parking brake on. The brake broke, the truck started rolling back, and it crashed right into our house. That'd have to be another episode. That happened when I was in high school. And it was so crazy because the room that it crashed into the computer room. And Marcus had just been on the computer, and I think my mom had told him to go upstairs and go grab something for her to bring outside because she was outside washing her car. And then I think I was just watching TV in the living room. And so it was just coincidence Marcus was not on that couch on the computer in the room, because he would have definitely got, that would have done a number on him. And so that was another story. But anyway, it was nothing but hills. And so we would center the little sled skateboard thing right at the top of the big hill. And then, we would get in, and we'd normally have like two other kids in it. There was this kid, Nathan, and this kid, Joey, that were brothers that lived not too far from Bobby. And I remember the four of us would get in that thing, and we'd center it at the top of the hill and just go, shoom, like straight down the hill. And it was kind of fun because, if you lean to the right, we could make the whole thing turn, or if you lean to the left, you can make it turn. It was kind of cool, but it was also very dangerous because we weren't wearing helmets or anything. And we were definitely going a good 30 or 40 miles an hour once you really got your momentum going down the hill with the little sled makeshift bobsled we've created. It was a lot of fun. That was the fun thing about being that age, is you're just totally, you feel invincible. You're not afraid of anything. You don't even realize how dangerous things are, because looking back, I'm like, you guys could have been killed. All it would have taken was one car to hit that blind spot and not see us and just take all four of us out. But we used to ride and zoom. And it was easier to do that in the beginning before the whole neighborhood was constructed, when there was only a handful of houses, because there weren't a lot of cars, coming in and out. There wasn't a lot of traffic, so you could just zoom and just ride out, have a good time. And then, as we got older too, especially by the time like me and Bobby hit like 9th grade and stuff like that, we weren't even really on the same kind of schedules anymore. We kind of branched. We were still friends, but we had our own circles, and you find different things to do. But me and Bobby used to do a whole bunch of crazy things, and I remember we used to steal the wood that they were using to build the houses, and we ended up making our own clubhouse way in the back behind our backyards. It was crazy because we were stealing some good wood too. This is some expensive stuff we'd be taking, and nobody would ever say anything, so we were like, okay. So we used to take like 2x4s and be taking drywall. And listen, our little clubhouse was even carpeted, because of course there's all these different houses that are being constructed, and they're all at different phases. And so we'd wait and we'd see that they had just carpeted one of the new houses, and then they'd have a whole bunch of leftover carpet. And I remember we took that, put it in our little clubhouse. The little clubhouse was nice. It was like a little shed. We tried to put some snacks in there, but we forgot about ants and bugs. And of course, the clubhouse was in the woods, because the way that the houses were set up. So me and Bobby's house were next door to each other, and then of course behind our house was the backyard, and then behind the backyard was a good patch of woods for maybe about, we'll say about 100 yards. And then behind those woods was some open farmland. And so Bobby's backyard, the dad had put a gate on the back side of the fence for the backyard to go into the woods. And so, we carry all the wood and go through his yard, and we'd set up shop and build our little clubhouse back there. And then sometimes we'd walk over to the farm because there was a bunch of horses, and there were these wild apple trees over there. So, you pick an apple, and then the horses would always come up to you at the fence, and you just kind of feed the horses, but be careful and don't get your fingers in it, because that crap freaking hurts. That's a pain you don't ever want to experience, I'll tell you that. I still think my finger's broken after one of them horses nipped me the wrong way. But, so we used to do that. So that was kind of a really cool experience growing up. You know what was also funny around that time? At that age, your friendships go up and down. You'll have somebody that you're super tight with, and then y'all will be fighting the next day, and then you're friends again, and then you fight some more. That was this kid Anthony that lived on the other side of the neighborhood. He was also in my class as well, but me and Anthony used to go at it on the bus every other day. We'd be cool on Monday, by Tuesday we were beefing, and we'd still be beefing on Wednesday, possibly on Thursday, and then we'd be hanging out all weekend. And so this one time, I don't even know what we were arguing about, but we got into this argument on the bus on the way home. I really can't tell you what we were arguing about. It was something really elementary though, something very, very silly. And so it got to the point where it's like, okay, well, you want to fight? Okay, when we get off the bus, okay, that's what you want to do, fine. So we end up getting into this fight when we get off the bus. A fight too. It wasn't even like no foolishness me and my brother have. We were really out there just wrecking. And so the fight ends, and mind you, I'm praying to God that nobody in the neighborhood has seen anything and will tell my parents that I've been out there fighting, because it would have been the end of the world if my mom would have knew I was out there scrapping. And so me and Anthony have this whole fight. And then literally the next day at school, Anthony gives me an invitation to his birthday party. I was like, we were just goofy kids. And so he was doing a sleepover, and actually it was a lot of fun. It was like me, it was Anthony, Brian, my Samoan friend I told you about, the kid Jeremy, and a few other folks. And so what was gonna happen was we were gonna spend the night that Friday, and then on Saturday, his mom was gonna take us to Wild Waves and Enchanted Village, which was like this theme park in the area. I think right now it's sponsored by Six Flags. I don't even know if it has the same name, but at the time, I don't think Six Flags was one of the sponsors yet. But it was kind of like just this water park and this theme park mixed in one. And so I remember we went, had us a good time too. The problem though was I was not the biggest rides and attraction person, because believe it or not, I was terrified of heights, which is so funny because I had no problem getting on our little makeshift bobsled that me and Bobby made and jetting down the hill. But when it came to getting on some of them rides, and mind you, like Enchanted Village doesn't even have a lot of big rides. They got like the Ring of Fire, which is this thing you go on and you sit in it and it just spins you up and down. It's like a loop-de-loop that's just stationary. You just spin around the loop. And they have maybe one or two roller coasters, or at the time they only had one roller coaster, and it wasn't even anything super, super big. And then of course the water slides, they had the big water slides. But to me, all of that was scary. I was never a rides and attractions person until I became an adult. Long story short, pretty much after you saw or you heard my first Howard University episode freshman year, after I hung out with a certain friend that was all about thrill seeking and going on every ride that could shoot you out of volcanoes and have you, fear for your life. After I went on all the rides with her, I was pretty cool with rides. But at this point in time, I was scared of everything. And so initially we started on the dry side. We did Enchanted Village. I went on, the rides that would spin around, and okay, I can do some bumper cars. And then, they started talking roller coasters and stuff, and I'll stand here and hold this stuff, y'all. Yeah, I kind of got a headache. I'll wait. I'm sitting here waiting like, dang, can we get to the water park? Because I just want to go to the wave pool. I just want to go to the wave pool, sit in that for 3 hours. So we finished the dry side, and then we go to the wild wave side. And so everybody, they're running, they're getting on all the water slides. The slides that are however many hundreds of feet up, and they're choom, choom, choom. I'm not getting on none of that crap. Anthony's mom felt so bad for me. She was like, baby, come with me on this ride. This one shouldn't be too bad. And so it was one of those rides where you get in the big giant donut and you just sit and it just kind of takes you around. It was one of those like rapids rides. It wasn't even fast. And so we've been in this long line. And the problem with the rapids ride was there were just too many stairs for my liking. I went up too many stairs getting on it. And it was like with each stair that I took, the more I was like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to get on this. And so I will say there are two walks of shame that exist in the world. The obvious one is the one when you've been with somebody you probably should not have been with, and you went and partaken in some activity that you would not want everybody to see. You don't went and slept with somebody last minute, and so now you're coming back home at 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 in the morning, and you're praying nobody sees you, and you're trying to sneak in. I had many of those in college where I'd be trying to sneak back in the dorm at 7 in the morning. Let me zip to my room, and then it would never go well because somebody I knew would always catch, Michael, where you coming from? Oh, I just wanted to go for a run. I just needed to just cleanse my mind, just clear my mind a little bit. I was stressed about an exam I didn't do too well on. So there was that walk of shame. The other walk of shame is when you are at the line for a ride and you decide not to get on, and then you have to go back. And so I was literally at the water. Anthony's mom had already gotten her donut. I was like, come on. I'm like, I ain't getting on that. And she was literally trying to pull me on the thing. The way I snatched my leg back from her, I took my donut and I walked all the way back down them stairs. Everybody's staring. I'm like, I don't even care. I don't want to get on. I went to the wave pool. I worked that wave pool for 3 hours because there was no way. I was just scared of heights at the time. It just wasn't my thing. Good times. But yeah, I guess what I'm gonna have to do with this series is break it up into even more parts, because clearly we have only gotten through 6th grade and it's not even 7th grade yet, and I've already been rambling for an hour. So what I'll do is I'll break this down a little bit more, and then hopefully within like the next 2 weeks, because I'm trying to be a little bit more consistent on the podcast now. I recognize that a lot of you actually like it, so I was like, okay, maybe I will keep this thing going, because I was one step from saying, all right, I think it's almost time to hang this thing up here, but we'll keep it going. And so we'll definitely follow up with the experience when I get to Cedar Crest Junior High, because Lord, you want to talk about a 180 on everything. So yes, that's my experience. And again, I was going through the change of just life where, I'm getting ready to start that whole puberty phase, and, I'm no longer in Italy. I'm starting to have my own viewpoints. My circle of friends is kind of developing and changing again, because of course, when you keep moving all the time, your new experience and your new norm is always something you have to constantly keep adjusting to. But overall, it was a pretty good experience. During that time period, like I said, that house we lived in, that was my favorite house that we lived in. Lots of really good memories. And I think it was my favorite because, this is back when everybody in the family was still healthy. All my relatives were still alive, and so I remember, I think that's the last time period where I still had a bit of innocence left with how I saw the world. It would quickly change in like 2 years, but it was still that time period where the world is just it's at my feet. The sky's the limit. I was bright-eyed and very simple child. The simplest things I was excited about, and life was simple at the time, and I was happy. Really great time. So yeah, we'll definitely check in, and I will see you next time.